Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Monday, July 16th, 2018. Let's start off with a look at the Southern Oscillation Index, if I can spit it out. This tells us about the pressure pattern across the tropical Pacific, and the thing that you need to know is when these numbers here are consistently negative, and you can see them on a graph down here, and especially -5 to -7, then you're in the base state of the atmosphere is behaving like an El Nino, a warm INSO event, or El Nino Southern Oscillation. So what do we have? Well, the 30-day average is -3.5 roughly. The 90-day average is -2.5. And you can see this is the 30-day, and it dipped quite a bit, but in recent days it has come back up. Today's contributor, and by the way, this is derived by taking a pressure reading from Darwin in Australia and Tahiti, all of those areas way out in the southwest Pacific, and through calculations that they do at the Bureau of Meteorology, you get this number, and it's just an index. It's not like it measures anything in particular. It's just an index. It's like the stock market index. But what it shows you is the pressure pattern in the tropical Pacific. And as of late, we've had a flattening out here of the 90-day, and the 30-day has had a marked increase. And as such, this does not promote the rapid growth of El Nino. This is kind of like a speed bump in the growth of El Nino in the tropical Pacific. So that's one way to look at this. So this also shows us, if we look at the actual anomalies, the departures from normal, a little bit of heat here in the area of the Pacific, centered away from South America really, and then really not that much way out in the western Pacific, central to western Pacific. So the El Nino growth is just not that substantial right now, for sure. And but it is interesting. Look at this on this anomalies map. This is updated today, by the way. This tells us our departures from normal, or the average. Look right there off of Southern California, down off the coast of the Baja and Mexico. Sea surface temperatures running above the long-term average, not necessarily related to this INSO event out here, but something to keep an eye on for a couple of reasons. When water temperatures off Southern Cal are warmer, then typically the mammals that live along the shore there, the sea lions, well, they have to go offshore because the nutrients are typically found in the colder water. And that's the same kind of deal here off the coast of South America. And that's why the Peruvian fishermen discovered El Nino a long time ago, because the warmer water meant less nutrients in the water, and the fish had to go either deeper or farther out, or they just died off, the anchovies. And the same is somewhat true up here when you get warmer water, and you can get what are called mass anomaly, what are they called? Mortalities. Anomalous mortality events. That's the word I'm looking for. A good friend of mine, Josh Blaylock, he was on at the beginning of the hurricane season talking about that with us a little bit. Anyway, something to keep an eye on in the coming months if that continues. Plus, warmer water all around this area can lead to maybe more moisture for the monsoon, and then later in August and September, if we get a tropical cyclone coming up through this way, yeah, it could be quite interesting out west. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic, the main development region through here continues to warm relative to average and relative to where it was, June 4th. I'm going to show this for a while because I think it's remarkable. Look at the difference there in the Atlantic. A definite warming trend in the tropical Atlantic. Nothing like it was last year. Still have a long way to go, so don't get worried that we're going to have a repeat of all the activity that went through the islands. It doesn't mean there can't be, but the warming doesn't mean that there will be either. Okay, so do not mistake this as any type of prediction. We're just observing that, yes, June 4th is quite different than what we're seeing now, and this rebound out here in the main development region might mean a busier hurricane season than was predicted recently. Colorado State University as an example. Phil Klotzbach and his team lowering the overall expectations, and a lot of that was based on, more or less this. So if this continues, we'll see. Maybe those numbers will come back up to more average on their August update. So moving along to the subsurface, this is a look at those anomalies, departures from normal, warm on the right, colder on the left, and you can see a large area of positive anomalies, just a couple of weird spikes of, way down deep in the deep tropical Pacific way out west. Everything else, though, is above the long-term normal, the average here, with one little island of cool right there. But interesting to note, in the eastern Pacific, this is your longitude area, 100 west, 120 west, 140, 160. And so right off the coast of South America, extending outward from there, this is not all that impressive. And this is where it really matters for the Atlantic Basin, too, to some degree. And if you look at it on the surface, we're talking about this area right through here. So there's not that much substantial warming overall. And for what it's worth, the index that's most measured or watched, which is called the Nino 3.4, and what is that? Well, basically the ENSO regions are divided up, and you get like this 1-2 area over here, and then you have like a 3, and then a 4, and then in the middle is sort of your 3-4. It's like a Venn diagram. Very, very rough example there. And the index of the 3-4 area, which generally measures, I don't know, roughly somewhere out here, has come down in recent days to a couple of weeks from close to the threshold of 0.5 Celsius. Now it's down to 0.2 officially on the Climate Prediction Center's update. So big speed bump in the El Nino is the bottom line. So there you have it. Moving on along to the actual sea surface temperatures. Now this is impressive, I got to admit. This, all through here that I'm outlining in purple, is 30 degrees Celsius or higher. And when I say higher, yep, down here north of the Keys, 31 Celsius. I mean, we're knocking on the door of almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And wow, look at that. I mean, this is shallow. Don't get me wrong. You can change this over the course of an afternoon with a thunderstorm complex. And then there's one little area right here south of Alabama, almost to the Alabama-Mississippi line. Is this far above normal? Well, if we go back and look at the chart, it's a little bit above normal through here, but not astonishingly so. But boy, oh boy, you guys down here along the Gulf Coast area, the humidity all along here, and over to Texas, that has to be oppressive. I saw some down here in southeast Louisiana on Twitter, heat index values in the low 100s again, with just ridiculous moisture content in the air. The Gulf is very warm though, so we're getting towards the time. We got about a month to go until the peak really starts to ramp up, and this is going to start to matter. We'll see. Nothing out there to worry about yet. In the Atlantic, this fascinates me as well. Let me zoom in on this. Kind of messed it up there. I live right here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the water temperature at the surface right off my coast, there's the 28 degrees Celsius isotherm. That means line of equal temperature. And then inside of that tongue of 29 trying to come back up. We had Chris that sat out here, created a strong northeasterly flow, and that really jumbled everything up. Now it's trying to rebound. I enjoyed it when we had 85 degree water right off the coast there. That was nice, I got to be honest with you. Not good if you want to keep the hurricanes away, and it got broken up a little bit, but it's starting to rebound. We're going to have a front that's going to come through and kind of mix things up again. But overall, water temperatures warm, and yes, they are generally warmer than normal along the East Coast. Again, there's a few areas where it got broken up because of Hurricane Chris, but I think they're going to rebound, and let's just wait and see if something comes along to take advantage. All right, so moving into that part of the discussion, is there anything to worry about? Well, the short answer is no. If you want to shut the video off now, go right ahead, or you can wait till the end and see what happens. But Nope, there's no threats, not even in the eastern Pacific. Interestingly enough, there is this one area way out, approaching the central Pacific area of responsibility. Pretty good chance that it becomes a tropical depression, but, and then this again tells me that the Pacific's just not, there was a lot of hoopla made about how busy the Pacific was going to be this year, that it's just going to be a hurricane festival out there. And we had Aletta and Bud in the East Pac, but then everything since then, and I talked about this with Fabio, it was forecast to be this powerful hurricane, and it never even made it to Cat 3. And now you see this, yep, high chance, and then you read in there, however, upper level winds become less conducive by midweek. So even this probably not going to do too much. There's a little bit of a look at it there. Another disturbance to its east. And if we mouse over this too, only 20% over the next 5 days. So overall, the Pacific not as conducive, perhaps, as we thought, for whatever reason. Just, warm sea surface temperatures out here, yeah, but stuff's just not getting off the ground, so to speak. Look at all that moisture over the southwest. hoping at the end of July, early part of August, for 5-6 days before the hurricanes start to form out here somewhere, that I can get out and study the monsoon a little bit. I'm very fascinated by that, not just the beauty of it, but how it works. I think it's just amazing with that interaction, all that moisture with the desert southwest. So, story for another day. I'm looking to try to do that, though. In the Atlantic, nothing over the next 48 hours, which is good news, obviously. And it makes sense. Things are quiet this time of year normally. Quite a bit of African dust reaching all the way over to Texas now. Kind of a weird color I'm using today, huh, with that purple. We'll change it to yellow. There we go. All that African dust. Oh, yeah, it sticks out a lot. Keeping things nice and quiet. And again, this part of the hurricane season, it's supposed to be quiet. So this is not unusual. A lot of moisture, though, getting ready to gather over the east. Going to be a lot of rain across this area. And somewhere up here is the leftovers of Beryl, now kind of fully entwined with a larger storm system, so it's no longer of any concern. Looking at the wider shot here to expand Atlantic Basin plus the Eastern Pacific. And yes, awesome from Levi Cowan. Always want to make sure I cite that. His awesome, I mean, come on. What's he going to do 5 years from now? Can you imagine? It's like watching it's like watching LeBron James when he just got out of high school. There you go. And I'm not kidding. Levi Cowan is absolutely a genius, and he can code as well. So that makes it even better. So really, thanks for these animations from Mr. Cowan. So what does it show? Well, I guess you can kind of see the problem here. It looks like, to me anyway, maybe a large upper level low sitting out here over the East Pac. And then there's our disturbance heading to the Central Pacific that'll fall apart. And then this really doesn't have much of a chance to develop. And you can see from the main development region through the Gulf, almost convection-free. Again, typical of this time of year. Doesn't surprise me in the least, especially considering the sea surface temperature profile as it stands. Even though it's warming, it's not like last year. So there you have it. What about the next 7 days? 7 days, let me show you. I have to just swallow once in a while. Got to remember, breathe and swallow. Next 7 days, this is the 5,000-foot chart. Look at that tropical wave there, some energy coming off. Elsewhere, items of note, huge area of high pressure sitting out over the Atlantic. And then you'll have these areas of low pressure here carving out troughiness along the East Coast. And if that, I'll just tell you straight up, if that holds on through the end of September and into October, the whole rest of the season, nothing will hit the East Coast because it can't. If you just leave your ridge out here and your trough over here, well, yeah, you just can't hit the East Coast. But, as I said, some of the longer range models indicating higher pressure anomalies up here later on in the hurricane season. But we'll deal with that when it comes to it. For now, let me just show you what we've got. Let's animate this. And I want to point out a couple of interesting things. Look at these westerly winds at 5,000 feet out here in the eastern Atlantic. Yeah, Eric Webb's talking about that recently, that these strong tropical waves inducing that westerly wind anomaly, part of it's the monsoonal trough action, but these African easterly waves slow the trades down here and even reverse them. I mean, look, it's all west, and then it's just kind of jumbled, very weak. And in fact, most of the tropical Atlantic, let's just go to day 7 here, stop it, and go to last. I mean, look, let's zoom in on that sucker. At 5,000 feet from Africa all the way out to the eastern Caribbean, those trade winds down there, I realize it's 5,000 feet up, but come on, I mean, at the surface, it's not going to be that much stronger. If you know your wind barbs, these are like 10 knots. Nothing compared to what we've seen in recent years or even lately. You know, earlier in the season, for example. What does that mean? It means that this should continue to warm up gradually over the next several weeks, just for what it's worth. See if I can zoom that out. There we go. All right, so nothing coming off of any consequence over the next week, and that leads me to, well, when will something become active? Well, we turn to other experts. Michael Ventris, and he doesn't know everything. All right, I don't know everything. Eric Webb doesn't know everything. Whatever, we've been through this before, but we get guidance here. These are sort of hints, okay? We're trying to solve the mystery of when will something develop, and when it does, where will it go, and how strong will it be when it gets there. That's the bottom line, right? Well, we look to science and people like Dr. Ventris and his work, and he's saying that models are calling for a strong convectively coupled Kelvin wave to pass the Atlantic and Africa regions during the final days of July into the first week of August. So what that would do is leave sort of a trail of favorability in its wake for something to develop. Let's zoom in on this. You see this is the area that he's talking about, and the most interesting area. I'll try to zoom in on this even more. There we go. So this indicates, this is the beginning of the forecast here, the ECMWF, and this right here is the convectively coupled Kelvin wave showing up at the 200 millibar level of the atmosphere and the intensity of it. And where does this happen? It happens from roughly 95, 100 west or so over towards Africa, right through here, like that. See? So, yeah. When does it happen? Right there, at the end of July. And what happens after that? This passes through, and then we get into early August, and we start going up the ramp. Could be an interesting start to August. So there you go. A piece of the puzzle may be starting to fall into place, and it's something that we will watch closely. Over the next week, though, no big deal, nothing to worry about, which is great. So, later in the week, I don't know exactly when, I'm going to get a guest back on to that phone a friend that I stole the phrase from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where we talk to an expert outside of my realm, and we're going to talk about sea surface temperature anomalies and what the different methodologies are behind the Reynolds map that we see from the Hurricane Center to the NOAA-NESDIS chart and its methodology from NOAA and NESDIS, whatever that means. I used to know. And then the CDAS, CDAS. All of them have different ways that they generate what they show. And so I'm going to bring on somebody to talk about that. Who that is, I'm still working on it. Got to make sure that they are available on my schedule and that they have Skype and so forth and so on. But we will tackle that before the week is out. Alrighty? That gives us something to look forward to. And when I know who it is, I'll let you know. That's it from me for today. Thanks for tuning in. Mondays, when things are not busy, are usually the longest update of the week as we just kind of go over everything to set things in motion for the week ahead. Every other day, probably pretty short and to the point. All right? Again, thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do so now. Hit the notifications part 2 so that you are notified when I post a video. What good is it if you subscribe and you don't know if I've posted a video? By the way, if you have our app, just a friendly reminder, Hurricane Impact, there is a video tab, not the live video, that's only live when there's something making landfall, but there's a videos tab, and every time I post one of these, the moment that YouTube finishes rendering it, it's available in the app. You just have to pull down to refresh. So don't forget, if you're on the go and whatever, and you've got our app, check it out, and the videos are there. All right? Have a good rest of your Monday. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. We'll talk some more tomorrow.